During this Easter season, we have been exploring our ongoing journey of faith, growing in our relationship with God. This journey of faith happens within the living, dynamic church that Jesus himself founded. The church being this place, a way for us to encounter the presence of God, all that we need to live our life to the full. It's a place that we can look for authentic, authoritative teaching, interpreting all that he left us, helping us to apply it to our lives today. It is within the church that we walk the narrow path in this passing world, while the new heavenly Jerusalem is being ushered in. By grace, we are able to walk that narrow path, not by our strength, but what God is doing in our life. Through grace, God makes his home with us, the living presence of the Holy Trinity taking room in our hearts. All of this is possible through the power of the Holy Spirit, which was promised by Jesus to the apostles in the upper room. The Holy Spirit being the third person of the Blessed Trinity, the bond of love between the Father and the Son. God, being faithful to his promises, sent the Holy Spirit in a powerful way at Pentecost to build, animate, and sanctify the church. In the Acts of the Apostles, we see that it is by the Holy Spirit that the early missionaries like St. Paul and Barnabas, Silas and Judas, not Iscariot, that traitor, who are able to go about building up the church, proclaiming the good news, the gospel to the Gentiles, those of Greco-Roman origin in the Greco-Roman world. We also see that it is the Holy Spirit that guides and animates the understanding of this gospel at the Council of Jerusalem, a defining moment in Christian history that shows that the church is a covenant community that has continuity with the ancient chosen people, the 12 tribes of Israel, but is very much distinct from Judaism. A Catholic community that embraces all nations, founded on the 12 apostles of the Lord. By way of sanctifying, it is by the Holy Spirit that the sacraments are a means by which we are able to encounter God and receive a share in his divine life, that is sanctifying grace. These sacraments are not empty rituals. They are filled with the glory of God, a place to encounter him and his love. But there is so much more. All of that the Holy Spirit is doing in the church is making her one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. Those 4 marks of the church. But since we are members of that church, that same power of the Holy Spirit is actually dwelling in our hearts, along with the Father and the Son. The God of the universe, that which created everything that we see and know, comes to dwell in our heart. And with the power of the Holy Spirit now dwelling in our souls, dwelling in our hearts, that interior transformation from the inside out is actually possible. The presence of the Holy Spirit in the soul can bear fruit in our life, such as greater love, more joy, peace as Jesus wants to give us, serenity that comforts us regardless of our outward circumstances, patience, kindness, self-control. By the power of the Holy Spirit, we are strengthened to do what we could not do on our own. Let's make this practical and take patience. We all could use a little bit more patience. We all have that one person or more than one person that really grinds our gears, that holy sandpaper. No matter what they say or do, they just get on our nerves. Now, on our own, what would be our initial reaction to that person? From my own experience, frustration, maybe being short with them, not giving them my full attention when they are in my presence. If they phone, I'm going to try and get off that phone as soon as possible. I'll find something to get away from this conversation. And at certain points in our life, we know that we'll tell little white lies to be able to get out of this conversation. We just don't want to have any sort of encounter with him. That's lacking patience. With the power of the Holy Spirit within us, this can change by the grace of that moment. If we desire that grace in that moment to be patient, and produce that love that we are to show to that person, regardless of how they get on our nerves. Yet the sadness is that the power of the Holy Spirit is so underutilized by so many in the church, myself included. We are like people who have the best computer on the market that can do some pretty powerful stuff, and all we use it for is word processing and maybe surfing the internet. It's a waste. But going back to basics, that Via Apostolica, this is how the early church worked. They relied on the power of the Holy Spirit for everything. And as a church and individual members of it now, we should do the same. Living life in the Spirit is a great adventure and an exciting one. All that is required of us is keep our sails open to the promptings of the Holy Spirit, desiring graces that we need, using the gifts that He has given us, trusting God that we are going in the right direction when the fruits are born: patience, love, joy, peace, kindness, self-control. On this side of God's green earth, the Holy Trinity, by the power of the Holy Spirit, comes to dwell within us. He's here, taking up room in our heart. This is just a foretaste of what is to come in the new heavenly Jerusalem, which is being ushered in. There we will be in the sanctuary of the heavenly city. We will be in a temple that no longer has partitions and veils to prevent access. Our communion with God right now is veiled through sacramental signs. In heaven, unmediated, direct, all-encompassing of every desire. To get there, that's the hard part. The sacrifices that it requires, the narrow path that we have to walk. And not everyone will. But we rely on the help of God, His grace, to bring to completion the good work He has begun in us.